past my witness. You just don't have a clue who took it. Look in your eyes, I see the envy. I don't check for this other shit. And that's not 'cause past my witness.
Hello. Welcome to the Rebuildables podcast show here on KCOU 88.1 FM. My name is Gerald Hopkins. I'm so happy to be here for a second episode back here in Columbia, Missouri. Again, you're tuned in here to KCOU 88.1 FM. Thank you very much to Kate Trinata and Kylie Uchis for this 10%. I love the song. I'm very happy with this album. Very happy it came out. I'm going to kind of take it down here for a little bit. For today's episode, I really wanted to go over two things. Kobe Bryant and the Chicago Bulls. Two things that don't really have a lot in common, which is kind of weird, but that's okay. On a serious note, I really do want to talk about Kobe Bryant and the tragic loss that we faced this Sunday. This is one of those things that you'll always remember where you were when this happened. I remember now I was studying because that's what we do in college. And I'm sitting at this desk. I have my phone on Do Not Disturb trying to read through the media history book. And Claire, my girlfriend, who I love dearly, is texting. And she's on her computer and she goes, "Did you see the news?" And I go, "What news?" I have my phone Do Not Disturb. I'm reading. She goes, and she shows me the computer, and it's a report from TMZ saying that Kobe Bryant has died in a plane crash. And I can't believe it. I'm like, no way. This has to be a troll or something. This is TMZ too. Like, I can't guarantee anything. I don't trust it. I don't believe it. I don't think this is happening. I don't believe it's real. So I just stopped reading and I go through Twitter. And for the next couple of 30 minutes at least, I'm on Twitter on my phone, looking at every little update. Oh, Rick Fox may be on the plane. Oh, the whole family's on the plane. Oh, wait, no, the whole family's not on the plane. No, Rick Fox is alive, and everything else going on. Media blunders left, right, and center. New reports coming every 5 minutes on status updates and who's on this plane. At first it's 5, then it's 9. And at the end of the day, we realize that, yes, Kobe and his daughter, Gianna Bryant, have passed and left us, as well as 7 other people who were on that plane, including a pilot. And it's absolutely heartbreaking. It's devastating. And it's something you can never expect. And it's been almost now 3 or 4 days, and it still doesn't feel real to think of a world just without Kobe Bryant, because he was so present in the NBA and in the world around us. As a sports journalist, Kobe Bryant is someone that's inspired so many. And the outpour of condolences and sadness, it is not just a one-sport thing. It's not just the basketball world hurting. Everyone's hurting. Kobe Bryant is one of those stars that everyone has their own story about in one way or another. Some might think of it as the 81-point night or his last game scoring 60. But the stories are all over the place. You're hearing stories now of Jerry West coming out and telling him, "Don't play for the Clippers. You can't play for Mr. Sterling." Or people coming out talking about him signing jerseys and selling things off to help kids with cancer and other things like this. Things that we didn't hear about before are now all coming out. And the power that Kobe Bryant had, not just in the NBA, and not just to the people he inspired by playing like my generation's Michael Jordan, but it was everybody else who saw the mentality and the absolute drive and desire to win. Something that cannot be matched, not even today. Kobe Bryant used to always talk about how these guys are just playing for their check and to take care of their families. Now he's on a different level. He's just playing to win. There's a bunch of little stories of ways that he would get into guys' heads, bumping Tracy McGrady in the back when he's hurt, just to get under his skin because Tracy McGrady's having a good half. And these stories go on, and there's so many ways I could talk about Kobe Bryant, and it's not fair to just sit here for 40 minutes and try to do that. I never knew him. I never met him. I only knew him through the TV screen. But because I talked about stories, I'm going to tell you my favorite. And we're going to head to a quick break, and we'll start going back on to the Chicago Bulls, make this a little more positive. But I heard the story of, I think it was one time Kobe Bryant's in practice, before anybody, of course, Kobe Bryant way. And he's shooting around, and he's missing a lot. A lot of shots are just breaking off a little bit. So he goes to one of the custodians there. He goes, "Can you check the rims? I think they're a quarter of an inch off." And the custodian at the time is like, yeah, we'll check, But he's really like, okay. He's probably just off. This is, an absurd request and very specific. So they go, they get the they get the measures and everything. And there's a quarter of an inch off. And do I know how true this is? No. But that's okay. Even if it isn't. That was the type of power and absolute love that Kobe Bryant had. It was like it was his lure. It was his story. There may be some myths, some fables, some things that aren't completely true, but we don't have to not believe them because it all just speaks to his work ethic. And something that I hope we all take away from it is you have to take everything with your full account and attention and to worry about every detail. Because we can't be perfect. No one's perfect, and it's not fair to say we are going to be. But to become as close as possible to perfection, you need to have that type of mentality of every detail, every inch, every little thing that you could think about. If you can control it to your best ability. And it's hard to think like that sometimes. I don't do it all the time, and not a lot of us do. But that's what separated Kobe Bryant from so many other players. And as a basketball player, you could see how much Kobe Bryant influences players today. Because Kobe Bryant was the carbon copy of Michael Jordan who changed the NBA. Because when Michael Jordan came to the NBA, the league was dominated by big men who were just bigger than you, stronger than you, and would take you to the basket and score. But then Michael Jordan comes along and says, well, actually, I can shoot a little bit, and I can jump over you. Stop me. And from there, you see Kobe Bryant being like, I don't want to say Jordan 2.0, but I'm going to say it again, a carbon copy of Kobe Bryant, of Michael Jordan. I'm so sorry. And the way he would just either jump over you, and then he learns how to hit a shot, and he starts winning rings. And then you could see it now in guys like LeBron, Trae Young, DeMar DeRozan, and so many other players. Just this kind of silky finesse of how these guys can move around the court and how everything feels like it's supposed to, it makes sense. Some guys kind of move around and it feels really robotic, like step to the corner, or make sure you drive with only 4 dribbles. But some guys that were inspired by Kobe Bryant, every move of theirs feels fluid. And there's so many other ways I could talk about the influence of Kobe Bryant today and forever, but that's not my job. And I can only do him so much. So, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bryant. Thank you, Gianna. Thank you to the Bryant family, and condolences to everybody involved, to everyone who's hurting. It's okay to grieve. It's okay to be sad. Be careful. Text those loved ones. Be proactive. And because we're not guaranteed anything. And I know everyone's going to say that. And you probably heard it now. Like, text the person you don't want to text and remind those people that you love them. But there is some meaning behind it. And it's important every once in a while to, swallow the pride and say, hey, I miss you. Hey, I care about you. Hey, I love you. When we come back, we'll start digging into my hometown basketball team, the Chicago Bulls. We'll look back at Jerry Krause and what happened after he left in 2003. And what does the future of the team look like once we get all the way around? Thank you again for tuning into the Rebuildables here on KCOU 88.1 FM.
Favorite bench warmers is now available to listen anytime, anywhere. After every Friday's show with Ben Krakow, Chase Phillips, and Garrett Jones, we post a podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the Anchor Podcast app, and anywhere else you get podcasts. We're also on Twitter at KCOU Walk-Ons. End your week with Preferred Walk-Ons, a part of KCOU Sports, and now streaming.
KCOU would like to shout out East Side Tavern. It's the bar that's bizarre. Downtown Columbia's best karaoke comedy club. With a huge selection of drinks and activities and themed nights every week, East Side is a solid place to hang out.
Baseball is what gets inside you. It's what lights you up. You can't deny that.
From college to MLB, join me, Taylor Renee.
And me, Emma Hayes.
As we discuss all things baseball on KCOU Sports' first and exclusively female talk show, A League of Their Own.
Tune in every Tuesday from 4 to 5 p.m. on KCOU 88.1 FM Columbia or online at kcou.fm.
There's no crying in baseball!
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Rebuildables podcast here on KCOU 88.1 FM. I'd like to thank you guys all for tuning in and listening to me talk about now the Chicago Bulls and their fall from greatness. And how do we get them back there? To start this all off, I want to really make a disclaimer here. I'm a huge Chicago Bulls fan. They're one of my absolute favorite teams, and I have absolute all love for them. Derrick Rose is a hero of mine. And there's only so much I could talk about these guys without not getting emotional, but trying not to get angry almost. They're absolutely amazing franchise. I love them. Right now, they can get me a little nervous and a little annoyed. But I'll forever be a Bulls fan from here on out, from the day I showed up here on August 6, 2000. Yeah, you had to know that. That's my birthday. Send me birthday gifts, please. So, where do we start? Well, we can really start with the last title, with Michael Jordan hitting the famous Game 6 shot, pushing off maybe a little bit, and hitting a winner against Utah Jazz, solidifying the chance for Karl Malone and John Stockton to never win a ring, which is tough because I really like both of those players, but they have no rings to their name. And that's because of the player Michael Jordan was. He was this guy that just would rip your heart out, and you believed it. But we're not going to start all the way back there in 1998. Because after Jordan retires, Jerry Krause, who's the GM at that time, moves everything, pushes it away, and teams start leaving. Guys are starting to get pushed out, and they're going to go into rebuild mode, and they know that. So for those years from 1998 to about 2003, this is the last years of Jerry Krause. Jerry Krause is the guy who built the Jordan teams and who kept the Bulls competitive and also winning for those 6 rings in the 2 years that Jordan decided to opt out and play baseball for X amount of reasons. So we get to that point, and I'm gonna bring it up here at April 14th, 2003. This is when former player John Paxson is signed to be the GM of basketball operations. GM of basketball operations. It's just general manager. I don't know why I added all that. Really, it's because later he becomes the vice president of basketball operations, but we're not there yet. That John Paxson becomes the GM on April 14th, 2003. This is because in 2003, Jerry Krause did step down because of health issues. He did go on to live longer. He dies in 2017. But from 2003, he doesn't feel fit enough to take over the team. And Jerry Krause was the man for a while and was a great scout and brought a lot of talent to the Chicago Bulls. So filling his shoes was going to be tough. But John Paxson looked like the guy. He played with Jordan, backup and sometimes starting point guard. And he had a great basketball mind. He knows what he knows what he's talking about. Being a point guard, you have to know all your players, especially in that era where point guards aren't the guys always scoring. They're usually the guys setting up plays, getting the assist, being almost like glue guys. Guys who are just going to, once they're in the lineup, they make every little piece around them work well. And to prove he was a point guard, in his first draft on June 26, 2003, John Paxson selects Kirk Heinrich with the 7th pick in the first round. This is only important because Kirk Heinrich doesn't become a staple of the franchise, but he is just like John Paxson. He's a point guard who isn't great at anything. He's not really going to kill you on one or the other. He's not a superstar. He's really a role player, but he's exactly what John Paxson was. He could shoot a little bit. He knows how to pass. He knows how to move the ball around. He is a mini John Paxson with weird glasses because he's afraid of getting his eyes hurt. He also picks up Matt Bonner in the second round. I only mention this because Matt Bonner is one of my favorite players, just a corner shooter. But he gets traded really quick for Chris Duhon on that draft night. My mom loves Chris Duhon, so shout out to my mom for that. He also signed Scottie Pippen But this is when Scottie Pippen's way past his prime. And this is not the Scottie Pippen of the 6-ring era. This is now the Scottie Pippen of I'm just still playing. And as John Paxson gets his feet wet, he starts, making some moves. The first, for 2003, it's really quiet. Some small trades here or there. He doesn't do much. And in 2003, the Bulls were 30-52 under Billy Cartwright. Billy Cartwright was also another former player, and he played in the Jordan era. This is the last year, though, of Billy Cartwright. Next year, they go into 2003-2004, and on June 24th, the draft, John Paxson selects Ben Gordon with the 3rd pick. This is very important because Ben Gordon now becomes the leading scorer. Ben Gordon always was a little bit of an underachiever for his career, but in this moment, as a young talent, when he comes into the league, he can score. He knows how to shoot. He knows how to get the ball out a bit. And he becomes the best scorer on this not great team. But 2003 and 2004 doesn't really fare well for the Bulls either, as they start 4-10, and Billy Cartwright's fired. He's replaced by an interim coach in Pat Myers, who goes 0-2. After that, Scott Skiles, the guy who got the most assists in the NBA in one game, I think it's 30 or 31, takes over. And so you can kind of see this little weird trend of old white point guards kind of running the Bulls. You have Kurt Heinrich, who's now old, but at the time he's young, but an old school point guard. Scott Skiles, a guy who's known for the 30-assist game, was a point guard back in Jordan's era. I don't think he played for Jordan or played on those Bulls teams. But, would run, pass the ball, wasn't score, pass first, doesn't score often. And you have John Paxson as your GM. So he's looking for guys that, I don't want to say he's looking for guys that are like him, but there's this idea of guys that are built like him are actually ending up on this team in one way or the other. And Scott Skiles doesn't have a great season. He goes 19-47 from there. And this is another losing year for the Bulls. And one of the bigger things that happens in 2004 outside of losing is on draft night, the Bulls trade Jackson Vroman and a 2005 first-round pick to the Phoenix Suns for Luol Deng. Luol Deng, a Marquette graduate, again, shout out to my mom, is huge for the Bulls in the future. He's a young player from, I don't remember what country off the top of my head. I know he's not from the United States. But he is a lanky little small forward, and it's a building block. He's a good young player at this time, and he's solid. He can score a little bit, good defender. He's about 6'9", has really long arms, so he's a great defender. He does a lot of little things. He's going to be a little things guy throughout his career. He has the ability to score, and everyone knows he has the ability to score, but he's not going to drop 30 a night. But he does all the little things. That's what's super important. There's a lot of other little trades, signings here and there, but we're not really looking at 2003, 2004 because this is another year of struggle. The next big move is in 2004, 2005, the Bulls start winning. Scott Skiles gets his chance to kind of move pieces around, do what he wants with the team, and they go 47-35. This is huge. This is a chance to go into the playoffs. They lose in the first round, which becomes a theme of the Bulls from here on out, of making the playoffs and just moving to maybe the first or second round, but that's it. They're not going to move far. And this is what makes it so frustrating being a Bulls fan. As I look through this sheet here and I'm looking through all the moves and trades, I remember some of these guys, and that's kind of weird because this is like 2004, 2005. This is when I'm like 5 years old. But I remember guys here, LaMarcus Aldridge, I know we're going to get to that. Ben Wallace being on the Bulls. Ben Gordon. I don't remember these moves because these are in 2004, 2005. But I remember these players. The next big move under my guy here, John Paxson, which is one of the more infamous moves, and this is going to be another theme of the Chicago Bulls, is trading away great draft picks unintentionally, is in 2006, the Bulls have the second pick, and they select LaMarcus Aldridge, who I just mentioned. LaMarcus Aldridge is a four-man, about 6'11", 260, very good player now in the NBA, and at one point was considered one of the best players in the NBA coming out. He was highly touted, very good, but no one kind of knew what he was going to be there just yet. And on this night, they pick him second. They also pick Rodney Carey with the 16th pick, who goes off to get traded as well. They traded on draft night LaMarcus Aldridge for a second-round pick in Demetrius Nicholas to the Portland Trailblazers for Tyrese Thompson and Victor Kanaprada. I think that's how you say it. It's really tough to say his name. Sorry about that. But this is a trade that is kind of like a win-now move because, yeah, LaMarcus Aldridge was good, but he wasn't proven. This turns out to be a huge trade for Portland as LaMarcus Aldridge blossoms around Brandon Roy and then Damian Lillard and C.J. McCollum at the time. And it's tough to, as a Bulls fan, to look at this one. Because you're like, wow, we could have LaMarcus Aldridge. That's a perfect piece. And then during this in July 13th, the Bulls signed Ben Wallace. And Ben Wallace is an intimidating figure. And he's honestly a great pick and a great signing because no one wanted to go to the lane against Ben Wallace. He wasn't bigger than you. He was about 6'11". He was a very undersized center, especially at this time. But you didn't want to go on the lane because he would hit you, he would foul you, and especially if you can get away with some of those fouls, you would feel it. Ben Wallace is known for being scrappy, dirty, and he was perfect for a team that had some offensive pieces. Now you have Luol Deng. Now you have Kurt Heinrich. Now you need some defense. We could have LaMarcus Aldridge. Here we go. This is where I get angry and all this stuff. After this, we trade Tyson Chandler away for P.J. Brown and J.R. Smith. Two names that this is when P.J. Brown isn't at his top. P.J. Brown this is kind of when he's falling down. But J.R. Smith's another player we could add, and the Bulls could have used. J.R. Smith, he's not in the NBA anymore at the moment, but he really could be. He can be a signing for anybody. And really a character, a nice way to put it. He's all over the place. But he still can score, a great shooter, bad shot take, bad shot make is how I describe Gerald Wallace. J.R. Smith. My coffee's kicking in. I'm so sorry. And then right after we get J.R. Smith, we trade him to the Denver Nuggets for picks and other small players. This is another what if. This is a two-guard that can score. And he goes to the Denver Nuggets, and now you build a team where you have Carmelo Anthony and J.R. Smith in Denver. But that's a whole different story, and that's a great draft that's coming up. But at that time, J.R. Smith isn't proven either. So, in 2007, we're moving along here. The Bulls go 49-33 and make the playoffs. And this is one of the years they actually go to the Eastern Conference semifinals to lose. Again, here we go. And we're hitting this weird point in Bulls history where they're good enough to make the playoffs, but they're not good enough to win it all. It's not a roster. You don't have a star. And in 2007, the Bulls picked Joakim Noah. And just a year ago, we had signed Ben Wallace. But this is 34, 35-year-old Ben Wallace, not 21-year-old, 20-year-old Joakim Noah. Joakim Noah is still one of my favorite players to watch because, yeah, he has a weird shot that spins sideways. He can't hit free throws, and he misses a lot of layups. But there's so few guys that will just out-hustle you consistently. And that's what Joakim Noah was. He worked harder than anybody on the court. And he was a big man. He had the ability at 7 foot to be taller than you. Lucky him. And he could just he would be great at getting rebounds and great defender. And this is another piece of the puzzle. And then in February of 2008, this is still now in the 2007-2008 series in the season, the Bulls make a big trade here to get Larry Hughes. And Larry Hughes is a certified scorer. But this is now the Bulls trying to get picks. And this is a year where the Bulls kind of fall off a bit. Because in the 2006-2007 season, and actually, wait, I'm totally out. 2007-2008 season, Scott Skiles is not doing his job. And they start losing. They're now 9-16. And they fire him. This train of getting there, but not getting over the hump, is not enough for John Paxson. Pat Myers comes in again, loses the game. I feel bad for him. He's 0 for 3 in his career with the Bulls as the interim head coach. And then they bring in Jim Boylan from Marquette for a bit. He goes 24-32. But this season isn't great for them. Bulls are not winning. They're out of the playoffs. And you're kind of like, well, what do we do here? This is not a team that's winning. So, from the luck of heaven or something above, Derrick Rose is coming out of Memphis. And Derrick Rose is the piece. He's the key. And it's almost like magic that he's here. Derrick Rose went to Simeon High School, grew up in Chicago, was a city kid, and everyone who pays attention to basketball in Chicago knew about Derrick Rose. I had a chance to see Derrick Rose at Simeon. He played against De La Salle once and tore us up. But he was a great player, and he had this ability to just finish over anybody. Kind of like Michael Jordan. He's almost seen as like the next Michael Jordan. And I know that's a really big stretch. I'm not trying to make that stretch. That's not a hot take. But we wanted him to be that hero, that person to carry the torch that we were missing for years. And he was for sure the first round pick. There was some talk at the time about him or Michael Beasley. For us, it was a no-brainer because the Bulls are gifted in the draft lottery the first pick. And we take the point guard, Derrick Rose. It's tough for me to talk about Derrick Rose now because he's actually doing really well, and it's very good, and I'm very happy he's doing really well. But he will be one of the biggest what-ifs. He is the Chicago version of Brandon Roy, the guy who you go, what could we done if he was healthy? That's a little bit of foreshadowing. During the same year, they hire Vinny Del Negro from being an assistant, I think with the Clippers at that time. He's kind of a guy who bounced around. He's also a former NBA player. Okay coach, nothing great. And for the next 2 seasons, they go 41-41. So for 2008, 2009, 2010, Vinny Del Negro is a perfect 500. That gets them into the Eastern Conference first round, where they lose. This is really important to note that he's a perfect 500 just because numbers are cool. But also, it gives for a reason for him to be moved. But he wasn't really going to be moved unless something happened. And that something was Gar Forman. Here I bring in Gar Pax. One of the most notorious statements now in Chicago is bringing up any reference to Gar Pax or Gar Forman and John Paxson. John Paxson is now the vice president of basketball operations. Gar Forman is the general manager. Together, they work to build the team, which is the Chicago Bulls. They're more tight-knit than most other VPs and general managers are. So, and then compared to other teams, usually the VP kind of just lets the GM do it and then fire him, move him on. But John Paxson has a lot of say in who they draft, who they go with, vice versa, etc., which makes it like a bigger target on both these guys' backs. So in May 21st, 2009, as Gar Forman is hired and John Paxson's moved up, they start working on making this team around Derrick Rose. That first move is in the 2009 draft, selecting James Johnson with the 16th pick, and Taj Gibson with the 26th pick in the first round. One of these guys goes on to be a Bull for a while. That's Taj Gibson. James Johnson kind of bounces around the NBA. He's in Miami now, and he really benefits from being in Miami. And then, Vinny Del Negro, after 2 years of being exactly 500 and losing in the first round, is moved for Tom Thibodeau. I remember this move. I remember Russ bringing in Tom Thibodeau. And I say us as a Bulls fan. And I was like, well, why? Vinny Del Negro wasn't a bad coach, and now we're building a team around him. We have some height. We have Taj Gibson. We have Joakim Noah. We have Luol Deng. We have Derrick Rose. And Tom Thibodeau is one of the key pieces as this coach because he does so well and so bad at the same time. Little did we know what Tom Thibodeau would bring for Chicago. As we move on, this is a team that can compete, and they do. But the first year, Tom Thibodeau and Gar Forman, the Bulls go 62-20, absolutely dominating the league. This is the year that Derrick Rose becomes the youngest MVP in basketball in the NBA's history, and it'll be forever remembered that. Derrick Rose is the youngest MVP. Go Derrick Rose. Again, there's only so much I could say, but That's his moment. And the Bulls go all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals. And I remember this. I'm like, wow, we're right there. And if I remember, we lose Eastern Conference Finals to the Heat at the time. And this is the super team Heat. This is where they're not going to be beaten. This is, unless you're the Mavericks. But we go on here, and you're like, wow, this can be something so good. You have one of the best young point guards in the league. You don't even feel like you're a piece away. You just know you have to beat Miami. And we were one of those teams that pushed Miami to the edge. So we go into next year here, 2011 and 2012. And the Bulls have like the really last tail end picks because they were in the Eastern Conference Finals. So they're not going to get in the draft lottery. They're not even in the draft lottery. They're just kind of getting seeded because they're really good at the end. And the Bulls pick with the 20th pick, Norris Cole. And with the 30th pick, Jimmy Butler. This is very important that Jimmy Butler is now a Chicago Bull. Because not a lot of people knew what Jimmy Butler is going to become. Not a lot of draft boards had him high. I almost remembered him as a second-round pick, but he was a tail-end first-round pick. But he becomes a future superstar. But for a couple of years, he's kind of just grinding his way out into the league. When I say Jimmy Butler, now a lot of people think of a superstar, a guy who's a multi-time All-Star and is a great player. When Jimmy Butler was picked, we didn't know that. Not even Bulls fans. This is a 30th round pick. We didn't kind of respect and understand this yet. A couple of months later in December, as the Bulls are doing pretty well, this is a time where the Bulls are contending. Derrick Rose is still healthy, and he's winning, and the team is winning. We sign Richard Hamilton. Rip Hamilton, as some call him. The Mask. Whatever you want to say, we signed him. And this is a huge signing because we have another scorer. Ben Gordon is now not on the team anymore. This is a whole... Rip Hamilton's a little past his prime, but if we can get half of him, maybe this is the guy who can kind of control Dwayne Wade, and we can make this a LeBron versus Derrick Rose fight. A fight that we wanted to have. This is especially because this is the year that LeBron James is coming off of losing to the Mavericks. Mark Cuban and Dirk Nowitzki get to rub that in his face forever. And it's one of these things now where if we want to hit them while they're down, and they're the Heat are the enemy of the NBA. They're the first super team that came together and wasn't traded or anything together, that willingly all signed together to win. Everyone wants to take them down, and we are one of those teams that we feel we can do that. We don't. Because that year, in the 2011-2012 season, in the first round of the playoffs against the Philadelphia 76ers, Derrick Rose gets hurt. He tears his ACL. In one of the saddest moments in Chicago sports history, recent Chicago sports history, everything goes downhill from that moment. But we don't even know it yet. Because we think, okay, he's hurt. This might be 1 year. We lose in the first round. And I remember sitting there, I'm like, well, what do we do? This is the guy. There was nothing else we could have done, it feels like. And yeah, it probably is, going back, this is a good team, but there's always ways we can make the teams better, right? But it's like, wow. It's almost like a moment of silence, because this is where everything changes. His first ACL injury becomes a string of knee injuries that forever keep Chicago behind because they had planned on Derrick Rose almost being the savior. In next year's draft, in the 2013 draft, Chicago picks Tony Snell. Tony Snell goes on to be what Jimmy Butler could, a what if Jimmy Butler wasn't successful. Same type of player identification, just 6'4". He's going to try to outwork you. Good defender, decent scorer, but not as good, and didn't reach his potential. And then in 2014, the Bulls trade away Lou Aldane to the Cleveland Cavaliers for Andrew Bynum, which we later drop immediately. And when we get the option in 2015 to swap picks, if the pick is not within 15 to 30. And this is a big thing because Cleveland is not good at this time. They're without LeBron. And everyone's kind of like, well, maybe this can kind of work out. But also a piece was gone missing. And Lou Aldane was a perfect Tom Thibodeau player. Because Tom Thibodeau has, and I look at these numbers, and he has great regular season numbers of 62-20, 50-16. This is a lockout season. 45-37, 48-34, 50-32. All great numbers and teams that had worked hard so every night and played 40 minutes of tough, aggressive defense and never had a break. That a lot of guys suffered from it, but Luol Deng wasn't really one of them. He worked out well with that, and he had the strength and stamina and kind of a little bit of luck to be fine. After this, the team slowly goes downhill a little bit here and there. It's more bumpy. But then Jimmy Butler becomes the star that he is. And you're like, wow, we have a chance. Here he is. And Derrick Rose is still here. Oh, what are we going to do? Because when Derrick Rose is coming out and in and out and suffering these knee injuries and trying to play, getting worried about playing, maybe not playing, all these other things, Jimmy Butler quietly becomes this player that we really kind of referenced for a while and adore. In the 2014 draft, after the Bulls lose in the first round, we pick Yusuf Nurkic and Gary Harris. Two good guys of the 16th and 19th pick. That we really, I like both of these guys. I said love way too much last week, by the way, so I'm going to try to tone that down. Gary Harris is a Michigan State guy. Nurkic, I'm an overseas player. But just that night, we trade both of them to the Denver Nuggets for Doug McDermott and Anthony Randolph. Which, surprise, it doesn't work out well at all. I don't know why we did it. But at the time, Doug McDermott's coming from Creighton, and he looks like this 3-and-D, really 3, I want to say defense, scorer who can go out there and hit a shot. Does it work out, though? Of course not. This is the Bulls. So, we move on a little bit here. And I'm going to move up to about 2015, 2016. Because this is the year Tom Thibodeau is traded. Or not traded, he is fired. After all this hard work and everything else going our way as a Chicago Bulls fan, it gets really hard. Because we now hire Fred Hoiberg, and we have this emerging star in Jimmy Butler. But we've kind of moved all the pieces away. And it's like, what do we do now? Guys go on and in through and out through this team. Some guys that are notable, Bobby Portis is selected in the 2015 draft. He stays with the Bulls for a couple of years. We trade away Kurt Heinrich after we re-signed him a couple years ago. We get Spencer Dinwiddie and we trade him away. In one of the saddest days in Chicago sports history, on June 22nd, 2016, the Bulls trade away Derrick Rose for Jose Calderon, Jeremiah Grant, and Robin Lopez. That was tough. There's a documentary about Derrick Rose out where when he gets this call, he just breaks down. That's how we all felt back home. It's hard to explain. Guys like Rajon Rondo, so many weird kind of players. Dwayne Wade at one time signs here, kind of come in and out. And we, for about 2 years under Fred Hoiberg now, not Tom Thibodeau, are just good enough. We're 42-40, 41-41 in 2015, 2016, and 2016, 2017. We have a winning record, but it's really fringy. And Jimmy Butler is becoming that guy. He's becoming the guy the team's going to build around, but he doesn't have the pieces around him to win. And he's also a fiery player. He's a guy who's going to get into the faces of people. I don't want to say Kobe-esque, but he has this kind of aura to him that we have to listen to Jimmy Butler, what Jimmy says we have to work with, and all these other things, which is very important. But it's also very tough to think about. And it's tough to now know. It's like, man. But the next big move is trading Jimmy Butler in the 2017 draft. This is one of the bigger moves because we lose the guy who we were building around. And it was the moment that Gar Forman and John Paxson say, we're throwing it out the window. Jimmy Butler's not going to do it for us. We can't build around him. Jimmy Butler had some discontent in the city, and it was kind of like in this weird hole of Chicago fans loved him, Organization, not as much. From here on out, we now have the core, the building blocks of the core that we have today, which is in Chris Dunn, Zach LaVine, and Lauri Markkanen. When these guys are traded together, the Bulls start losing. Surprise, you have 3 young guys who aren't great. And as I look through here, all these small picks, we trade away Nikola Mirotic, another big piece. Jeremiah Grant is gone. Chandler Hudson and all these other players are now moving in and out. The last move I'm going to talk about before we go to break, the last 2 is in 2018. The Bulls select Wendell Carter from Duke with the 7th pick and Chandler Hutchinson. And in 2019, the Bulls select Kobe White. These are the last 2 pieces to now start building the lineup that we have today. When we come back, in about 2 minutes, maybe a little less, I'll start looking into today's roster. And what can we do as Bulls fans? Not all of you guys, but me at least, because I'm, your favorite GM and show host. What can the Bulls do now? And with the roster that they have and the people that they have, what's the future look like? Thank you again for tuning into the Rebuildables podcast here on KCOU 88.1 FM. I'm going to drink some coffee and you guys can listen to some spots and promos. And we'll be right back.
Okay. Hey, this is KCOU 88.1 FM. Are you trying to release the hottest project of this year, possibly next? Come down to our studio in the Student Center, and we can mix, master, record, edit, engineer your whole project, your whole artistic experience wrapped into one visit. Please come down and visit us.
If any of this interests you, please email sessions@kcou.fm.
This message is for all of you sitting in the passenger seat. And apologies if it gets a little uncomfortable, but how does it feel to be at the mercy of someone who thinks a random text is more important than your life? Someone who takes their eyes off the road while speeding along in a 3-ton hunk of steel. Freaky, right? Well, why not just ask them to stop? Or better yet, volunteer to text for them. It might be a little awkward, but believe me, you'll live.
Learn more at stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
Tune in to one of these nights on KCU 88.1 FM. Join host Garrett Jones to talk the weirdest and wackiest in all 4 professional sports. I'm on from Sunday nights from 5 to 6 on KCU 88.1 FM. And if you ever miss a show, catch it wherever you enjoy podcasts. It's one of these nights on KCU 88.1 FM.
Hello. Welcome back here. We're listening to Supply and Lotus. Already know. Hey, we're back here on the Rebuildables podcast and show here on KCOU 88.1 FM. I'm going to leave this in the background for me. I really like this song. So here we are, talking about the Chicago Bulls in 2020. I can see clearly now we still stink. So I'm looking at a Bulls roster on this sheet of paper that is 3rd in the Central Division, not currently in playoff contention, but around 2 or 3 games out. I really think that's insane to think about because this team has a lot of weird pieces and a lot of them that could work out, haven't worked out. To give an update on the Bulls season so far, right now, Lauri Markkanen, Otto Porter, and Wendell Carter have been out for about 2 or 3 weeks. I think Otto Porter's back in the lineup. Denzel Valentine's hurt, Thomas Satoransky, Luke Cornett. Zach LaVine might be even hurt a little. This is a tough time again. And it's tough for a couple of reasons. One, we're still developing, and the team has a lot of everything going on, but we don't know exactly what that means. And there's not a lot of big men on this team, just simply put. the roster has Wendell Carter, Lauri Markkanen, Luke Cornett. Who else can we consider a big man here? See, Cristiano Felicio, which is, oh gosh. Daniel Gafford, young. He has some potential. Thad Young is considered a point guard, or Thaddeus Young. And when I look at this lineup, there's just not enough, it feels like. But it has a weird construction where it could be very good. The Bulls are 19-30, as I said earlier. But at times it feels like they win games that you don't expect them to win. Because between Zach LaVine and Kobe White, Lauri Markkanen, Wendell Carter, and Otto Porter, there's some scoring on this team. Kobe White has the ability to drop 30 on anyone's head. He hasn't really proved that yet. But early in the season, when he was playing really well, he has that ability. Zach LaVine has made a case for being an all-star. One that's been highly debated. I don't think he's going to get it. I don't think he got it. But he has these nights where he could just put up 40-plus out of nowhere. Otto Porter is really like a younger Danny Green, as he can be a really good 3-and-D defender. But even he has struggled throughout this year and has been fighting injury. You also have Lauri Markkanen, who's supposed to be like almost the centerpiece. He's the guy we traded for, who the Timberwolves drafted. He's supposed to be like this next Dirk Nowitzki. This year he struggled a bit. I still have faith in him. I really like his game. I'm going to say it, I love his game. He's one of these guys that can space the floor. And he works really hard, and he's really humble, which I really do appreciate. And you have Wendell Carter, who is the epitome of a glue guy. Somebody who's going to stick there and do all the dirty work. He's amazing at it. If he just wasn't getting hurt all the time, we owe him an apology. The Chicago Bulls do. I really think Gar Pax, who we despise around here, deserved to write him a 20-page letter just saying sorry for everything else around him. The bench around the team is where the downfall happens. The Bulls have a starting lineup that can do some work. Between those 5 guys, they're young, and they have the ability to score. Defensively, they lack a bit, but even with that, there's chances here to get buckets. What kills is you have nothing on the bench. Outside of Denzel Valentine, really, maybe Chandler Hudson, and Thaddeus Young, who is becoming the veteran of this team, and has been the veteran of this team at 31. You have a lot of young, unproven guys like Ryan Arcidiacono, who's now 25. Luke Cornett, we talked about, he's 24. He's been very subpar. Adam Makoka. Thomas Sadaransky, who's 28. Max Strauss. A lot of these guys, Daniel Gafford, Kristen Felicio, even Chris Dunn, who starts right now but will sooner or later get moved. I like defensive point guards off the bench more. He's not a great scorer, but he knows how to play defense really well. There isn't enough depth on this team, and you don't really have a superstar outside of maybe Zach LaVine. But Zach LaVine's really inconsistent. I still like the Bulls' construction on a very simple level, as in the starting lineups there. We just need the bench. The other problem is the head coach has been very, very, very subpar. Nicely put. Jim Boylan, who is the interim coach last year, has now taken over full-time this year and has been not great at his job. And it's really easy as a fan to be like, oh, yeah, he stinks. And being, wow, why do we have him? What's going on? What are we doing? But it's really because there are some things that I sit there and watch and I go, why is he doing what he's doing? Why is this guy not playing? What's the point of this? And it gets to this point where I really think that half the things that they do are only because somebody told them not to do it. Or somebody said, you can't do this. Please don't do this. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not making an original report. This is all speculation. I have to say this. If John Paxson and Gar Forman said, don't worry about winning. Just worry about getting X, Y, and Z out on the court. That wouldn't surprise me at all. I could see them waiting on somebody. The problem is they're playing in a league now where the draft lottery is at its all-time low. We saw it last year in a team that was the not the 76ers. The Pelicans, who are 9th in the West, get the first pick. And the Lakers, who weren't even that bad, who are right on the cusp of being on the playoffs as well, get the second pick. The draft odds now are getting worse and worse for those teams that really are not doing that well. So for the Bulls to kind of be like, maybe losing intentionally, maybe not, I really can't tell sometimes. But also with a lot of their injury problems and forcing some of these hard losses. What else do we... why do we keep going back to the lottery? Trusting Gar Forman, John Paxson, and Jim Boylan to pick the next superstar is really, really hard to do, because every time we believe, and I believe in them, they fail me. So what's next? My best advice to everybody else listening who is talking about the Bulls and is a Bulls fan is to stay strong right now. We have the core. The Bulls need to move some of these guys for one or two good veterans. We have a lot of young players that sit there and don't do enough. If we were to move Felicio, because everyone wants to move Felicio, or even Daniel Gafford, a guy who can play a little bit, is young, Max Strauss, maybe even throw in a sweetener and throw in Denzel Valentine. We need to have some bench depth and some veterans, guys who have been in the league for a while, because really there's only one player on this roster that's over 30. That's Thaddeus Young. Outside of that, a lot of these guys have barely been in the league for a while, and if they've been in the league for a while, they've been out right on the bench. Thaddeus Young at least has had some starting experience. He's moved around. He's played on playoff teams. You don't have even playoff experience. How are you going to have guys run your locker room if you have one guy who's really been into the playoffs? That's one of the things that is going to plague the Bulls, is they can keep going back to the draft to pick good players. Like I said, I think their starting five still has a lot of potential and is very young still and can play. But after you get to that starting five, you don't have anything. And that's the important part. The Bulls need to get some more veteran depth to be really competitive. They need another Thaddeus Young type player, a guy who will sit there and has been in playoff situations and knows what it takes at least. And they need to fire Jim Boylan. I said it. Jim Boylan, yeah, he may not have the absolute wherewithal to know that they have to win right now, and maybe this is some part of this bigger plan that no one can see. But he makes a lot of tough decisions within the last 2 minutes, and he's not playing somebody because they're doing this or that, and it just doesn't work. He's a little too arrogant in his own way, in his own right. And it hurts everybody. Guys don't respect him. There have been talks and guys who've said, like, I don't respect Jim Boylan, or they don't listen to him in practice. And if the media doesn't think that your players trust him, that's a problem, because the media likes any piece of gossip. That gets us our money. Duh. So if it doesn't look like you're running your team well, and it looks like guys don't pay attention to you, it's going to sweep up into the air, and everyone's going to believe it, especially because we're below 500 with a team of young guys that are inconsistent right now because they don't have anyone who can guide them, and a coach that is inconsistent as these players. Those are my thoughts right now about the Chicago Bulls. Next week, we'll be going into a different route. We'll finally move away from basketball. I know I've been doing about that for the last 2 weeks. We're going to talk about football. We're going to talk about the Denver Broncos. We're bringing on a guest. I'm not going to reveal his secret identity, but it's a man at this moment. And hopefully I'll bring on somebody else. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in and listening to me. I was a little sick. I didn't want to say it until the end. You could probably hear it a little bit. So I'm sorry if my tone's a little tiresome. Been getting through a little bit of a cough and a cold. But thank you for everyone who tuned in today to KCOU 88.1 FM and listened to The Rebuildables here with Gerald Hopkins. Next week is the Denver Broncos, as I said earlier. This episode was the Chicago Bulls. Fire Jim Boylan. It's my last words. Thank you again for listening. And I'll talk to you guys next week. 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 I'll talk to you